Hello, everyone. Sorry, there's a little bit of a delay with um, Zoom notifying us that we are streaming live to YouTube, but we are here. Thank you for waiting for us to sort out our technical difficulties. It's so nice to see you're introducing yourselves in the chat. If you haven't already, do let us know where you're joining us from. So we always like to know where in the world our watchers are. I'm coming to you from New Zealand. Brooklyn is also in New Zealand, and Constance is from the UK. So we're kind of on opposite ends of the world at the moment. Um, okay, so uh, I thought I would just dive right in to our free workshop of the month. Today, our workshop is called The Three Things You Need to Know Before Making a Shirtwaist. And we are going to spend the next 90 minutes with you geeking out over beautiful historical garments and giving you our top bits of advice about how to make one if you'd like to make one. Um, if you haven't already met me before, my name's Luana. I'm one of the mentors at Foundations Revealed, and you may have seen me around under my own label, Vanyanis, where I specialize in bespoke corsetry, bridal couture, and I've also been teaching corset making for the last about 7 years, but I've been sewing for nearly 20. So that's a little bit about me. Joining me today are my fellow mentors, Brooklyn and Constance. Brooklyn, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So hi, I'm Brooklyn Michelle. I am owner and operator of Brooklyn Michelle Couture, where I make custom couture clothing. I also have over 20 years of experience in sewing. I have a master's degree in fashion design and merchandising, and with an emphasis on everything Victorian, and that's where my soul is truly happy, is all things Victorian. I live and dress Victorian-ish every day, so kind of halfway between living history and history bounding. And I can go from just like really casual history bounding, wearing a Dead Kennedys t-shirt with a Victorian skirt, to wearing completely Victorian, depending on the day. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Brooklyn. And Constance, did you want to introduce yourself as well?
Hi, thank you. So my name's Constance Mackenzie. I'm one of the mentors as well. I'm a I'm a costume maker for film and TV and theatre, but my love of costume making actually comes from historical reenactment and also any sort of costume from the past. My particular love is the 16th century, but what with work and our interests broadening, that yeah, I dabble through quite a lot of different centuries now. I also wear historically inspired clothes most of the time. So I just look like I'm also just time traveling from one 16th century through to maybe the 1930s, depending on the time of day and time of year.
Thanks so much, Constance. Okay, so that's a little bit about us and who we are. Um, I just wanted to go over a little bit about what you can expect in today's workshop. So what we're going to cover in the actual kind of like content part of the workshop is we're going to um, do a little bit of it. Well, Constance and Brooklyn are going to do a bit of a talk about what is a shirtwaist and where does it come from. And plus, we're also going to give you our top three bits of advice that you need to know if you want to make an amazing one. And that's going to take up kind of like the majority of our time in today's workshop. I mean, it was pretty hard to narrow down what we wanted to talk about today um, to fit everything into only like a 90-minute workshop because it is one of those huge topics that just like we could talk about this forever and ever and still find more things to talk about. A little bit of housekeeping. Like I just said, the workshop's going to go for 90 minutes, and that includes a Q&A towards the end. So if you have any questions about anything about the shirtwaists that Constance and Brooklyn will be talking about, or you are welcome to ask questions in the chat. We will do our very best to get to your questions. And uh, oh, sorry, I've totally lost my train of thought. But with this particular workshop, this video, even though we're going live right now, the recording is going to stay up on the Foundations Revealed YouTube channel. So if for any reason you can't stay with us till the end, you can always come back and finish watching the workshop later. Or if you think you know someone who would be interested in what we've shared with you today, you can send them the link and they can watch it in their own time as well. So, we wanted to just do something that was going to help as many people as possible because shirtwaists are beautiful garments and there should be more of them in the world. And, it's, just a little something we can do to help everyone out. Plus, as well as those things I've just mentioned, if you're able to stay till the very end today, we have an exciting surprise to share with you. Constance is going to share something a little bit special that wasn't technically part of this workshop, but we just decided that we couldn't not show you, and we're going to squeeze it in at the end with as much time left as we have, depending on how quickly we get through questions and the rest of the presentation. So that's enough kind of housekeeping from me. I'm going to hand over now to Constance and Brooklyn, who are going to start off with defining the characteristics of what is a shirtwaist circa 1890 to 1920. Thank you both very much.
Yes, we've put together a little bit of a slideshow, so let me get that up and running. Where's the present button? Can you see that?
I can see the page. It's not in presenting mode. It's just in screen mode.
Okay. There we go. Okay.
So I'm going to start us off with a little bit of an introduction, and then we're going to share our thoughts about shirtwaists. So importantly, and first of all, what is a shirtwaist? And to put it simply, a shirtwaist is a sleeved and collared garment worn on the torso with similar features to the garments we call shirts and blouses today. However, this term was used variably in the past and was just one of a range of terms used to describe a set of similar garments. So various terms were used: shirt, I think we all know what that is, shirtwaist, a waist. So this is a general term applied to all different sorts of bodices and shirts and other garments. You might see this a lot in advertising and dressmaking books of the era. Blouse, also recognizable, and a blouse waist. But this is just some of the terms you will find when you start researching what is a shirtwaist. And different parts of the world called them different names and referred to them as different things. And and when we talk about our clothes now, we're talking to each other. We can go, oh, well, I wear this. It's a, and then we can explain it. But obviously, when you're researching, you only have the words the person used to describe it themselves. So then you become like a bit of a detective working out what they mean. Were there any other names you wanted to add that you found, Brooklyn?
I think I've seen chemise waist and a couple other ones. But yeah, it is yeah, it's one of those things where we also tend to give things names today and we're like, this is the definitive name for this thing, that isn't always necessarily the name that it was historically known by. A good example, I think, when we talked through in the walking skirt courses, the walking skirt is a very modern term that they wouldn't have used. So that can also be a trap sometimes when we're naming things and we have this definitive, this is what this name is, when things could be a little bit more vague historically.
Yeah.
So these are
we
just
thought we'd share. Oh, you go.
Yeah, we thought we'd share a couple different styles from the main period in which people think of shirtwaists before we get into the history. And these are just some great examples that Constance has dug up because she's my resident researcher.
Yeah, so we're covering quite a wide-ranging topic with the shirtwaist. We've put initially sort of 1890 to 1920, and you can see here there are 4 shirtwaists ranging from that time. And as a garment evolves in time, fashions change, and you can just see a few of them here. So 1890s, the shirtwaist, in some ways, this is the peak of its time. It was its most
Yeah.
fashionable, and also everything was its most extreme, wasn't it, Brooklyn?
Yeah, and it's when we think of the shirtwaist these days, thinking back, this is kind of when people first start talking. Like we like to think this is where the shirtwaist starts, but historically we see that that's not true. Um, and that there are definitely older versions of it. Um, uh, I love the 1890s personally because I like big sleeves and I cannot lie. Like
And
it's one of my
they
favorites.
really are at their most extreme here, aren't they? They're wonderful.
Yes. I think the 1890s for me is because it's that perfect moment of a very kind of like formal, like or like masculine-ish kind of look with big sleeves, whereas the earlier time periods that we have big sleeves are very frilly, and I'm not a very frilly person. It's not a style that suits me.
Yeah, and I'm glad you sort of concentrate on the 1890s because I think I definitely gravitate more towards the other three shirtwaists here. So I love the Edwardian one
Mm,
that we've got next. But then I also quite like how they develop into a much more casual style in the teens era and then into the early 20s. But there's always something following through, isn't there? There's
yeah.
a little style moves each time.
Yeah, and it's it's really that kind of casualness that I quite like that follows all the way through. They even when they become really frilly, they're still a more casual, what we would consider more of a blouse instead of like, a bodice. Um,
Yeah,
I personally, when I think of Constance, I always think of a midi blouse because you always seem to be wearing one.
I am
Yeah.
wearing one now. But
Okay.
definitely more on the simpler end, which I think is often what confuses people with this term of
Yep.
shirtwaist, because they were still being used in books, advertising,
Mm.
fashions were sold, so that the same garment was being called a shirtwaist through all this time, but you can see it completely transforms.
And yeah, and I think that goes often. We like to sometimes put lines in sand where terms ended or stopped. And that's just not historically true. I recently found a 1980s interview with old flappers, old 1920s flappers. And one of the women refers to what we would call a corset in the Victorian period as a corset, a girdle, and a stays all at the same time, all within the same conversation, which shows that she grew up with both corset and stays as terms that were being used. And I've seen in magazines, for example, stays being used for corsets all the way up into the 1870s. So just as a little kind of like terminology, things aren't always cut and dry, black and white.
Absolutely.
So that might leave you a little bit more vaguer on what a shirtwaist is or isn't, because the kind of I like to say a shirtwaist isn't a bodice. That's what a shirtwaist is. But some of the general characteristics of a shirtwaist is the term shirtwaist was mainly used to refer to feminine fashions in the period between 1890 and 1920. But style and constructive methods crossed over extensively from masculine shirts. So the shirtwaist was this blouse type that originally was trying to emulate the kind of more masculine styles. In the advertisement that we have shown here for arrow collars and clouette shirts on the right, highlights some similarities between some of the masculine and feminine styles of the shirtwaist in the 1900s. The shirt fronts, the collars and ties worn by the four male models are almost identical to the seen on the female model front, second from the left. And it's almost like she's trying to fit in there as one of the boys, it was kind of um, this is again, this fits in with the 1890s coming into when women were starting to wear much more tailored outfits of three-piece suits, wool suits, and whatnot.
So hopefully that's narrowed down a little bit what a shirtwaist is. I'm now going to go through a few more characteristics. So on the whole, they often opened at the centre front or the centre back, as you would expect a garment to, very like a bodice. But sometimes there are very clever ones that have hidden side fastenings and collar and a fastening at the collar and the neck, which often makes them look like they were almost impossible to get into, or it's like some sort of illusion. But yes, but generally you would recognize a shirtwaist by it being a front opening garment like you would see a shirt today. The closure options were buttons, which is the most common, but you also get hooks and eyes for more fitted styles, and poppers, small metal snaps could be sometimes used in correspondence with the buttons or hooks and eyes, or sometimes used on their own. And then the other things that are a characteristic of the shirtwaist is the style lines. So the collars was a very important part of it. The collars changed throughout fashion. So most shirtwaists had a small little stand collar, but they could also have separate starch collars like men's shirts, which we saw in the previous image. But the collar also changed throughout the fashion. So again, it looks like a very stiff starch collar in the 1890s, 1900s. This starts to get a bit softer and a bit looser in the teens era. And then becomes the style that I really like, which is the sailor style collar in the teens and in the early 20s. The other thing that changes dramatically with the shirtwaist and the shirtwaist fashions is the sleeves. So we've already talked about Brooklyn's love of the big 1890s sleeves. That's going to be your signpost if you're looking at an 1890s shirtwaist or researching them or wanting to make one or looking at patterns. But by the late 1890s, it's got a bit smaller at the top of the arm. You see less of the leg of mutton and more just a puff at the top of the sleeve coming down to a narrower cuff. And then this continues into the early 1900s. But still full length sleeves, but then you also start to see the bishop sleeve, which is where the fullness changes to being, rather than all being at the top, it all moves to the cuff area. And you also start to sort of see 3/4 length sleeves coming in as well later on in the 1900s. And then by the 1910s, again, much narrower tapered shirt style sleeves or 3/4 length sleeves become more common. So hopefully that also gives you a bit of an idea if you're going to start doing research and looking for pictures of your own. Think about what was fashionable at the time that you're interested in, and then look to see if you can find those examples of fashions in the pictures you're looking at, because that will probably help give you an idea of what you're dating your shirtwaist to.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah. So most often shirtwaists, when we're thinking about fabrics, they were most often made from a lightweight but crisp fabrics like cotton, lawn, or silk shirting. But materials could be anywhere from translucent to opaque. It was really up to the individual person and their style and intended use of the shirtwaist, especially as the shirtwaist moved from lower class to upper class, as fashions often actually do. People tend to think of fashion going the other way, but we see lots of examples of fashion moving from the lower class to upper class. So finer, more delicate base fabrics are used for fancier shirtwaists, especially those with lace insertions or the more embellished styles. Opaque, plain weave cottons were commonly used for everyday hard-wearing garments that could be worked in and washed. Fabrics were sometimes woven with stripes or check patterns or printed with small floral sprigs or simple geometric designs. And a few extant shirtwaists are made of heavier materials such as lightweight wool, twill, and cotton velvet, but these are usually for cold weather fashions. And again, more for the fancier kind of shirtwaist, more of a, is it a shirtwaist? Is it a blouse kind of middle ground that we're starting to get into, especially towards the end of the 1890s and the beginning of the turn of the century, and even more as we move into the Edwardian period. There becomes this blurring line between bodice, blouse, and shirtwaist in what you start to see. And museums never always can confirm what they want to call some of them. Sometimes they're like, it's a blouse, and sometimes they're like, it's a shirtwaist, and you're like, I wouldn't call that a shirtwaist. But that just goes to, again, to that thing that we like to do, where we like to put things into a solid box that weren't necessarily in that solid box. So when you're looking at fabrics, you really want to think, what am I looking for? Am I looking for an everyday garment that I can just chuck on, I can put through the washing machine? Then you probably want a more sturdier cotton shirting or whatnot. If you're looking for something to wear as you stroll through the garden, then you might be looking for cotton lawn with lots of insertion lace and everything else, which would not have been washed as a standard shirtwaist was, which would have been able to be used and scrubbed and put through a wrangler and all other kinds of things like that. Yeah.
Okay, so now we've told you some general characteristics, we're going to put this into a little bit of a timeline and a bit more context because nothing exists in a vacuum. The shirtwaist didn't just suddenly appear in 1890 with its enormous sleeves. It had to develop from somewhere. So we're going to go through a little bit of that too. So shirtwaists of the style that we're focusing on the course, as I said, rose within the Western style fashions during the 1890s. As we've talked about, they were ideal for the changing modes of garment production and of garments, the production of garments at the time and consumption. They could easily be mass produced in standardized sizes. They could be sold off the rack in department stores and catalogs. And this made them accessible to a wide range of people. And this, combined with their stylistic versatility, made them a practical wardrobe staple for the growing number of women entering the workforce. However, as I said, this is not a new idea.
Mm. The shirtwaist origins actually lie in the range of looser, more relaxed styles from earlier decades. These came particularly from informal fashions and sportswear. In the 18th century, garments called habit shirts had been worn with tailored riding habits, mimicking the appearance of a masculine shirt styles worn under suits. Variations of the habit shirt continue to be worn throughout the 19th century. I also, as a little kind of sidebar, this is one of the first times we start to hear about women and their like activewear. Like, how people talk about today with women in activewear. There's lots of articles about how women were wearing riding habits just day to day. They had no intentions of going riding or whatnot because they were a slightly more comfortable, more casual outfit that they could wear with in the late 18th century. So I just like this because it's one of those things of arguments, or like certain arguments go back far as history. It's just like as far back as we have written history, we have arguments of kids these days. You have as far
Absolutely.
back as history you go, you have complaints about women wearing casual wear or active wear when they have no intent of doing said sport. So
And
yeah,
this was the same with men's fashions at the time. The same thing was being said about men's sporting clothes. And this continued into the
yeah,
19th century for everyone. So it's not a new trend at all.
yes. So wearing your active wear is not suddenly, just to lounge around the house or go shopping. Is nothing new.
So when you start to see something really recognizable as a shirtwaist or a blouse, it can begin around sort of the 1820s and 1830s. So it's still a variation of the habit shirt. So it was sometimes, like we were saying, worn for riding, with and without jackets. And it was a practical style. So it became adopted into more everyday fashions. And you start to see blouse and blouse waists, which are contrasting to the skirt or other garments that someone's wearing. So when you're looking at a dress, even if it was made up of a separate bodice and skirt and they're matching, you're going to look at it and assume it's a dress. If you start to
Mm.
see contrasting colours, then in fashion plates or in pictures of people dressed in the 1820s and 30s, if you start to see maybe a white, but it could just be a different colour to the skirt, then you might be looking at the origins of the shirtwaist, but you're more likely to find it being called a blouse waist at this time. So there's some examples here you can see, and these are ones we are assuming are that because they are the sort of crisp
Mm.
white cotton with frills and flounces. So they're still emulating the bodice of the time, but they're a little bit more casual, a little bit looser.
This isn't to be confused. At this time, you'll also see sometimes what looks like a shirt waist popping from underneath of a low cut bodice. Those are often just a chemisette, which is what we would kind of call like a dickie today, just a little kind of front. So it can be a little confusing when you're looking at fashion plates. And so, as Constance says, you really want to look at what the full torso is doing. So it's just a little bit of white to kind of hide some of the décolletage and cleavage, then it's probably a chemisette. But if it's the full torso, then you're looking at a shirtwaist or blouse waist or any of the other types of terms we used. So the shirts of various sorts were worn throughout the following decades, following the general trends in the style of that decade and the silhouette. So from about the turn of the 18th century, we start to see more and more of these things that we would now call a shirtwaist. In the 1850s and 60s, a particular wide range of shirt styles are visible in fashion plates and photographs worn both with and without a jacket over top. This is actually one of the times when I really start to feel like in popular culture, we start to see the shirtwaist really represented. Often in TV shows and movies, you'll see a woman in a kind of plain shirt and with her skirt and everything, and it's very much that old west kind of vibe. That they always, whenever they want to show somebody really working class or struggling on the farm, they put them in a shirtwaist, I feel like. The Garibaldi blouse was a revolutionary style that was also adopted into fashion. When you compare fashion plates to photographs, color illustrations make it easier to differentiate if it's a shirtwaist or a bodice, while black and white photos can sometimes make it hard to tell a bodice from a shirtwaist, especially if they're both plain fabrics.
So now we're moving into the era that we're going to be talking all about in the shirtwaist era. So we've already gone over the 1890s being the boom of the shirtwaist, and here are 3 examples that have, I think, all the quintessential 1890s fashions. Is there anything there that really stands out for you, Brooklyn, that you like?
I love the sleeves in that etched drawing. Like, sleeves bigger than my entire body is my whole dream. Like sleeves that mean I have to turn sideways to go through double wide doors would be. And I do have those kind of sleeves on today. I just keep forgetting to make myself some sleeve supports, so they're limp, which is the nice versatility of these. And you do see some people wearing them with or without supports. Especially I think lower class women would probably not always have the ability to starch and support their shirts. But yeah, I just, and all the little dainty buttons up the sleeve. Yeah.
I know, it's just beautiful, isn't it? Just beautiful.
What about you?
I suppose I like the high collar. I love the leg of mutton sleeve. But they're still quite tailored and quite structured at this point, aren't they? It's got a formality to it that I like.
Yeah. You start to see, well, you see we've got 2 spectrums here on this same thing, even of in the 1890s, especially, you start to see some like the one that I pointed out with etching, where the bodice is still quite structured. It's, and it's usually then often mounted onto a very fitted waistband, so everything stays in place and everything. But then you also have ones like the pink embroidery and gloss one on the left, which has the front is just all loose to be tucked in as you see fit. And so there is a bit of range in the way that they're starting to come out. And I think this is when they start to definitely move into the mass manufacturing, was this idea that it only had to fit at the bust and then it could go straight down. So they didn't have to worry about how things fit, because of course Victorian bodices are very, very tightly fit and very specific. So they were harder to just mass manufacture than the shirtwaist.
I think we better move on, or we're going to be on the 1890s all evening.
Yes. Let's move on just 7 to 8 years.
But this is a really good example, isn't it, of how the fashion trends of the time influence the shirtwaist. You can see now we're at the end that the sleeves have got a bit smaller, and that looseness that you were talking about in the pink blouse, I think that's demonstrated in all of them here. It's the emphasis of the bust and then tucked into the waist.
Yeah. and you also start to see them becoming a lot more formal, a lot more what we would call today a blouse, where they're starting to get a lot more decorations into them, etc. um yeah, let's just keep moving.
Okay, let's just edge ourselves into the 1900s.
Yes.
And this is what I was saying about how the bishop sleeve is when all that fullness from the sleeve head
Mm,
falls down to the cuff, and you can see it, especially in the lady in the middle and the black and white photographed on the left, can't you?
yes. And there are two different types of bishop sleeves that you start to see here. There's the all around bishop, which is a quite uh evenly spaced fullness around the bottom. And then there's the like what I like to call the elbow out. And it's where, and you kind of see it right here in the lady in the middle, where all that fullness is kind of like subjected, almost like it's like a lump that's hanging down off one side. And it is probably one of the odder sleeve shapes from this time period, of that kind of really focused into one position. Um, yeah. It's not, I do love a good bishop sleeve, but that bishop sleeve gives me room to pause sometimes. But
It
also oh yeah, sorry.
Go on, Darren.
I just wanted to say that this, as you can see in the etching, or the drawing, we are definitely getting into much more decorative styles, fancy yokes, lace fronts, attached little beltlets that kind of go with everything. Um, yeah.
All right. Again, we could linger here, but to cover the whole range of topics of
Yes.
shirtwaist, I'm going to jump to what I think is my favorite, which is coming up to 1910, when I feel the shirtwaist sort of splits. So some
Mm,
women carry on wearing a shirt, well, really what we would recognize today. It's got a fitted collar, it's got tapered sleeves, it goes into a cuff. You can wear it beautifully with a tie as just the only accessory you need. And I'd say it's almost what stays with us as the formal shirt
mm.
up to the current day. But then you also have the other ladies on the right, which is like you were saying, when it becomes sort of ethereal and translucent and light, and you get the lace insertions and pin tucks everywhere.
You
Um,
would not go to your factory job in that
no,
at all.
no.
You know, this is my other favorite time period with shirtwaist, because I just love all of the extra and the extravagance, um and it's a really, I think it also shows a really big difference between our morals on visible undergarments, because you see a lot of these sheer things, and a lot of times you would be able to just see their corset cover underneath and nothing else. And we would have never thought, because we think of a corset cover, rightfully so, as an undergarment. In modern days, we can, oh, our bra strap showing, or any of that thing is more of a taboo thing. So it's really interesting how, even though we think of the Victorians as more quote unquote repressed, they were much more okay with showing some of those undergarments.
Yeah. And then just to also jump into what, what to end off the 1910s, 1920s, you can again see that the shirt style continued with that sort of more tapered sleeve, um, and the front fastening body. But you also then start to get the more interesting teens era, which is when the sailor collar really comes in, the midi style that I really like. Um,
Mm,
and and the sort of where the shirtwaist sits, when you move into the 1920s, it still remains like a waisted garment that's tucked into a skirt, but it also then starts to develop into a more blouson shape that, as you
mm,
move into the 20s, when you start to sort of lose the waist and the waistline really lowers. Um, yeah, it's still a shirtwaist, even though it's
yeah.
so far away from what we saw in 1890.
I feel like this is another style that has stuck with us as like a more like the more formal blouse that might wear to work, that isn't a shirtwaist but is a blouse, you know. And you can definitely, what I like about this time period is you can definitely see the military influences of World War I coming through with the midi blouses and the various different collars that are much more kind of inspired by the masculine military fashions of the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's from then on, we have blouses and shirts, and we continue to wear them today, whether you like them or not. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed our little presentation. Any last words? about it,
No, I
Constance?
think we need to hand over back to Lawala now. Thank you, Brooklyn.
Yes.
Thank you both so much. Oh my gosh. Those those shirtwaists with the bishop sleeves are just like my absolute favorite. I love them with all like the pin tucks at the top of the sleeve head. They're just like, I think they're my favorite of everything you've shared today. I want to go make one like now. um, for everyone who's here with us live, or if you're watching this recording later, let us know in the chat what's your favorite shirtwaist of the ones that you've seen today. Um, and yeah, I have a question for both of you, Constance and Brooklyn. If, you know, if everyone else who's watching is feeling as inspired as I am, can you give us your top three bits of advice about things, we should keep in mind when embarking on making our own shirtwaists? Like, what's the three things that you have to do or you have to look out for that will, make your project go more smoothly and turn out better than, basically, so it will turn out amazing and you'll feel great when you wear it. Like, what would your top three bits of advice be?
Well, I think that concentrating on the style and fit of your shirtwaist is really important because, as you've just seen in those pictures we've gone through, it changed a lot with the fashions of the eras. So there's no point assuming the fit of an 1890s shirtwaist, which with those big sleeves needs to be very close to the armhole needs to be very close to the body to give it that some control. And then it's tucked very, very tightly into a waistband. And again, that's a very fitted, controlled thing. The fit you would be looking for in the 1890s is not the same fit you're going to be looking at 1900, and especially not in 1910 or even 1920. So you're going to really want to think about what style of garment you're making and what sort of fit suits that garment. And sometimes when they get a bit floaty and a bit lightweight, the sort of like the more ethereal style shirtwaist, you think, oh, how could all that lightweight lacy fabric be in control? And this is when you might see a fitted lining, which is part of the garment that fits closely to the body, and then all that gauziness and loveliness just gently sits on top. And it also means that those delicate fabrics are under strain because the fitted lining is fitted to your body and is fastened to securely, and then that gorgeous floatiness just sits on top. So fit is my first piece of advice.
Yeah. Fit is important, in proportions within that fit too. Make sure your proportions are doing what the Victorians wanted the proportions of that bodice to do. Yeah. I'd say my number one tip, especially if you've worked with a lot of Victorian bodices, is your seam finishes. This is a garment that is designed to be literally put in through the wash and washed regularly and put through the little wringer, literally put through the wringer. So you want to focus on a lot of times in the dressmaking books and stuff that they have for this time period, they recommend a French seam, and it's definitely what I would recommend too. French seams. Make sure you're covering your binding, your armholes. All of these things are less necessary in a Victorian bodice where you can just kind of whip stitch over the seams. Or even leave them unfinished because you don't normally wash a Victorian bodice. Whereas this is designed to be washed again and again and again. It will get much smellier because you're usually working in it and not just sitting there going, oh yes, lovely tea. What a great day, as some of the more formal garments are. So really think about your seam finishes, thinking about how the seam finishes are going to have longevity and wear, and how you're going to make sure that this is a garment that you can wash because it is designed to be washed. A lot of times when we say Victorian things, we talk about Victorian fashion, we're like, oh, you could put tarlatan and all this stuff in because it's not designed to be washed. But this is the exception. This is one of your garments that isn't designed to be washed again and again and again because it is an everyday work garment. Unless you're doing one of the fancier ones, then ignore all that. You still probably want to use French seams. They're for weight fabrics.
Absolutely. And then this will be something that I'm sure we're both going to feel is really the third important piece of information here. The type, and to carry on with what Brooklyn was saying about seam finish, the type of fabric that you make your shirtwaist out of. But I think I would really recommend some sort of densely woven, firm cotton type. Strangely enough, some cotton shirting might actually be perfect for you. But there are other plain weaves, some poplins, batiste. If you're going for a more lightweight fashion, maybe the sort of more ethereal blouse, maybe some cotton lawn. I personally love a bit of linen, but if you're going to use linen, you're going to want one that's a really, really firm, solid weave, emulating a cotton, not something that, not something that resembles a sort of more Hessian or natural fabric. So yeah, a really good fabric that can stand up to the rigors of wearing it every day and washing it every day. How about you, Brooklyn?
Yeah. Um, I love a good shirting or a cotton poplin. I love lawn. Lawn is lovely. One thing to note though with fabrics is we cannot emulate some of those really sheer cotton blouses because we just don't make fabric that well anymore. Like a lot of those fabrics that you find, you'll be like, oh, that's so gorgeous. How did they do it? They had really good fabric. It's also how we often like a lot of the fabric, a lot of the sewing guys are like, oh, you should get 16 stitches to an inch. And you're like, there's not enough thread in my fabric to do 16 stitches to an inch or 12 stitches to an inch or whatever it is. We can't, our fabrics are much coarser. As in the individual thread is much coarser. Meaning that a lot of times those really sheer fabrics, and I have some, it's actually from Victorian drafting paper that you can wash the resin out of. But it's sheer but so firm and solidly woven that we just can't get these days. So keep that in mind when you're trying to emulate those more historical fabrics, is that sometimes it's just not possible anymore because we have degraded our manufacturing of fabric um, massively.
The other thing I was going to say to take in mind with fabric, and then we must move on, I'm sure, is that when you're studying an antique garment, remember it is not new. It has been worn,
Mm.
it has been laundered, it has been washed. It will have changed its density. So if you think they all have to be lightweight, or you're only seeing lightweight examples, think about how that fabric might have looked when it was new. It might be much more solid and firm, like a cotton shirting. So you're looking at a 100 or older-year-old garment and comparing your new garment to that, and remember that this one was once new as well. So always keep that in mind.
Thank you both. That was really helpful. So just to like summarize, um, your top three bits of advice were concentrate on fit and proportions. I especially loved what you said, Constance, about fitting like a lining layer to your torso, and then all those drapes and gathers and beautiful things are like kind of like stitched in place. That's kind of like a moment because you see all these, they just look like puffy shirts, right? And to get them to sit nicely, of course that makes complete sense that you'd have to stitch all that puff and gathers and everything into place to get it to stay just so. But that's something that isn't necessarily obvious when you're looking at a picture because you can't see that lining layer. So I think that was my favorite bit of takeaway advice that you've shared. Then the second thing was seam finishes. And the third thing was the fabric types to use, and just pay particular attention to that. So if you are with us now, let us know in the comments what was your favorite or most helpful bit of advice, the thing that resonated the most with you. We always love to hear what you are thinking about what we're presenting. Um, and yeah, thank you both so much for the presentation you've put together so far. It's been really, really helpful. I know I've learned a lot. I'm a bit more focused on kind of more modern clothes and corsetry and stuff. So it's been fascinating for me as well. Um, Constance, I notice you've got, is it a shirtwaist on your mannequin behind you? Is that something
I
you've just
do,
prepared
yeah.
earlier?
It's not something I've prepared. I suppose in a way it's a little bit more special than that. So
Well, I hope you let us have a look at it in a little bit, if possible.
I
I'd
think we
love
can
to
manage
see.
that.
Okay. Um, but yeah, so I mean, I know you've both spent quite a while in putting your presentation together, but you know, and from everything we were talking about when we were preparing this workshop, I know you're both struggling to kind of like narrow it down into like what to include today, just because there's so much we could talk about. So I just wanted to take a brief opportunity to tell you about the new course that we have put together. Well, not just us, but us and the editorial team, and our other mentor, Barbara, who works with us as well, because we've actually spent the last 9 months creating a course all about shirtwaists, which launches tomorrow. So, it's been a labor of love for sure. And, you know, if you can imagine how much research and work has gone into 9 months of work to put together a course, we've included so much more than we could include today in like this, brief video. So the course is called the Foundations Revealed Shirtwaist Course, Fitting Victorian and Edwardian Silhouettes circa 1890 to 1920. And in this course, it's comprised of 13 modules and we'll release one module every 2 weeks. So that, if you want to follow along with like the course structure, you've got time in between each module to actually do the work and learn what we're teaching. So you don't get overwhelmed with everything just being like too much all at once. But, if you can't work at that pace, it is self-paced. You can you can participate in your own time as well. It's we've set it up so that it is going to be it's not reliant on attending like live videos like this one. You can, there are videos and written components to this course the way we've set it up, so you can watch the videos in, as it suits you. It's not going to be dependent on what time zone you're in, or if you can make a particular time of the week or whatever it might be. The thing that I'm most excited about with this course is that it can work for any body type, gender presentation, or style preference, because we're not just teaching you to make a shirtwaist garment. Like that's kind of almost like the bonus of doing the course, is like you get a cool garment at the end. But what we're actually teaching in the course, you will be learning how to draft, modify, and fit a bodice or torso block that fits you perfectly. And then we will show you and teach you how to modify that block to basically be kind of any style of shirtwaist you could dream of. So it's really like, it's not, you'll just be learning to make, for example, the bishop sleeve shirtwaist that I love. It's like whatever is resonating with you and whatever style of shirtwaist you want to make, or even, you can apply these skills to any type of torso garment technically, because fitting the torso is one of the trickiest things you can learn to do with sewing. And, once you can conquer that and you understand how to adjust patterns and change them into different style, shapes, and silhouettes, and all sorts of things, like it just opens so many possibilities of what sounds cheesy to say that, but like what is possible for you to make, because you've got the skills to do that. And that's the thing that I love most about this course that we've created. It's not just shirtwaist. It's actually, you'll actually learn the skills to kind of be able to make anything torso related. So Brooklyn, what is your favorite thing about this course that we've put together?
I would say Oh, my favorite thing. My favorite thing is I love drafting, and I like that we have, like we did with the walking skirt course, we've really gone through and streamlined the drafting, Victorian drafting systems, which are kind of like working with an unedited Victorian drafting system is kind of like diving into a shark's nest and pretending to be a shark and hoping they don't figure everything out. Like you don't know what you're doing half of the time. Um, but so I really like that we've once again made drafting um so much more approachable and easier. Um and uh and I always think drafting is one of the most important skills you can learn as a sewist, because it's really how you learn how clothes go together. And once you know how clothes go together, you can make better clothes.
Yep, that's so true. What about you, Constance? What's your favorite thing about the course?
Well, I
If you
think
had to pick one.
well, I've really, really enjoyed the research and what it's taken to try and define a shirtwaist. And from what I've learned from that is a little bit like we've talked about in the presentation, that really a shirtwaist is defined by whatever you want it to be. As you know, there are some characteristics, there are some styles, there are some recommended items. But if you want to take that idea of a shirtwaist, whatever your idea is of a shirtwaist, and run with it, you can. And you can be as historically influenced as you want, or you can just throw the historical out of the
Mm,
window and make a shirtwaist that suits you. And I think that's something that often intimidates people when they want to make a garment. They go, well, I want the instructions to make exactly this. And Victorian and Edwardian books don't ever show you exactly this. They show you a block, like we're going to teach you how to make, that fits you, and a range of techniques. And then they leave
mm,
you to apply them. But if you follow our course, you can apply the techniques you want to use to the garments, to the block and the styles that we're going to teach you. And I just think, it opens so many possibilities.
mm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess, we want to hold your hand and like guide you through it, not just teach you random skills and then leave you to your own devices and hope you can figure it out on your own. Like there's a lot more guidance in the course. You get options about what you get to make creative decisions and stylistic decisions and fit decisions as you go. But at each step, we're guiding you like, okay, so if you've decided to do this, here's what you do next. And then, oh, if you've decided to do this other thing, you've got to do this next. Like, so there's, options to really make it this
Yes.
personalized
You
thing.
won't all come out with a cookie cutter blouse that looks the same as everybody
Yeah.
else. Everyone's will be personal to them,
Yeah.
but also inspired by what inspires them, and all the era that inspires them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it's not just like what you'll be learning in this course isn't just applicable to like feminine type of garments. You can apply them to more masculine type of garments too. It's like, it's, it's really teaching the skills to kind of be able to make
Mm,
not anything, but like almost kind of anything torso related, um, but with a lot of guidance, rather than just you're on your own now, which
yeah.
is not what we want to we want to make it a enjoyable experience for you, and I think we've done a pretty good job of setting up the structure of the course so that you're really supported throughout the whole process, and you're not going to be sitting at home by yourself pulling your hair out trying to figure out what comes next, because we've planned it all out for you. You've got options, but it's worked out for you.
Yeah, and I think as Constance mentioned and you mentioned, one of the things that's really cool is a lot of times when you have courses that teach you how to make a bodice block, that's where it ends. You've got a bodice block, and you're like, well, what do I do now? And I've seen so many people who don't know how to take that bodice block or not understand how to take that bodice block and turn it into the blouse of their dreams or whatnot. And by bodice block, I just mean like a torso block. I should say like a block for your torso, whether that's a bodice or fitted garment of any other form. Um, in this course, we really show you how to manipulate that block into various different shirtwaist styles, how to turn a sleeve block into various different sleeve styles, so that not only can you make your perfect shirtwaist for this course, but when you leave, you can then modify any block that you ever create in the future any different way because you will have the basic understanding.
Yeah. And like you've got that because we start off with like a fitted torso block for each
Mm.
of you. And there is we've put so much time and effort into the modules where we focus on fitting and how to fix fitting issues, because that's, you know, like learning to fit yourself is probably one of the hardest things you can do in sewing. And, you know, we figured that's, you know, to get the fit right for your torso is the most important thing, right? Like that's the first step. But then once you've got that block that fits your unique body, like Brooklyn just said, we show you how to modify that pattern that, you know, is on paper, that is you in paper form, to be different styles of shirtwaists. And whilst the shirtwaist is the garment you're making to apply these skills, those skills will transfer to other garment types in the future and things that you want to that you may want to make, because those skills are transferable amongst sewing in general, not just for shirtwaists and torsos. So it's going to really transform your understanding of patterns and how like a 2D pattern shape relates to your 3D body shape, and how to conquer any of those niggly like fitting problems you might have come across in your sewing many times before. But yeah, I mean, we could talk about the course for the rest of the time we've got today. I better move on. But okay, so just bear with me for a few minutes, because if you are not already a member at Foundations Revealed, I just wanted to take this opportunity briefly to just tell you a little bit about Foundations Revealed membership, because this shirtwaist course that launches tomorrow is included in membership for our Academy and Essentials members at Foundations Revealed. And we've got a special offer to invite you to join us if you would also like to participate in the shirtwaist course that is launching tomorrow, and also access all the other wonderful things we do at Foundations Revealed. There's no like extra charge to do the course. It's all included under the same umbrella of membership of what we do at Foundations Revealed. So bear with me 1 second. I've just got to figure out some tech. And after I've kind of told you a little bit about Foundations Revealed membership, Constance has that thing we're squeezing in at the end to share with you, that we're squeezing into the end. Okay, so the special offer, 1 second. I'm just going to do a screen share, and our wonderful concierges who are looking after the chat over on YouTube, if you're able to post the link to the join page, can everyone see? Yep. Okay, great. All right. So if you are interested in finding out more about Foundations Revealed membership, you go to foundationsrevealed.com/join. And this whole page has all this information about what's included in membership. But like I just said, we do have a special offer that's running from now until Monday. So 4 days from now, if you're watching this live, I will read out the exact dates and times once I've finished screen sharing, because that's on a different note for me. And we've got nearly 50% off membership over the next 4 days, just to celebrate the launch of this new course and give you an opportunity to join us if that's something that feels right for you. So we offer 2 types of memberships at Foundations Revealed. We have the Essentials membership and the Academy membership. So the way I like to describe the two is the Essentials membership is kind of like a library card. Gives you access to the extensive archive, all the same information that the Academy members have access to, but it's more self-paced. You don't get access to us mentors, so you can't ask questions of us. It's more for the motivated self-learner who just needs access to the information, and they just kind of want to dive in and start doing it on their own. We do also have a a Discord community for our members for all levels of membership. So we do offer a wonderful kind of like, yeah, a community of sewists that you can join in and chat about, and talk about sewing and things you're learning with them. So you still get community, but you don't get the you don't get access to us mentors. And then so with the Academy membership, that's kind of more like, it's not a class, but you have access to the teachers essentially. So in the Academy membership, we have a private Facebook group for Academy members where the three of us mentors, plus also Barbara from Royal Black Couture, who is also one of the Foundations Revealed mentors. So there's 4 mentors in that group, in that Facebook group, and you can post in that group and ask questions at any time. Post pictures of what you're working on or anything you're struggling with and needing advice, or fitting help. You can post pictures of yourself in mock-ups, and one or all of us will chime in and be like, oh, okay, so if it's gaping over here, you need to do XYZ. So that's the kind of like, that gives you like the teacher card of, you've got an expert on hand at basically any time that you can ask. Yeah, you can ask for help at any point. We also offer for both membership options. We have a monthly price, which is what you can see on the screen. So at the special discounted price, that's $57 USD per month for Academy, or $27 USD per month for Essentials. But if you sign up for a year, you get 2 months for free. So that would be $270 for the year for Essentials, or $570 for the year for Academy. So you save 2 months. But yeah, there's more information about membership and everything on this page. Do follow the link in the description below this video or in the chat, if you want to suss out a little bit more about the membership there. Now, if that is something that's not right for you at the moment, I do want to take this opportunity to mention Foundations Revealed also offers membership scholarships, and there's also a link to that below this video as well. So if joining as a paying member isn't something that's right for you, and you feel like you might be a good fit for our scholarship program, you're very welcome to apply. And yeah, I just want to reassure everyone as well, there is no contract with membership at Foundations Revealed. It is month to month, or if you've bought the year package, then it's that year that you've signed up for. But you can cancel at any time when you're on the month to month plan, and there's no locked in minimum term contracts. It's very simple. You can just email customer service, and we're never going to try and force you to stay. We want you to want to be there with us. Foundations Revealed is for the sort of maker who is really motivated to advance their skills and their craft, and you want to learn more. You want to kind of deep dive into how to do things properly, and surround yourself with other people who are just as inspired and creative as you. It's not for people who just kind of maybe are a little bit interested in perhaps sewing. Like it's yeah, I don't know if that's making sense, but it's you've got to if you find yourself feeling a bit lost about which tutorial to follow or which YouTube video that you should watch, and things aren't quite making sense because they don't go into enough detail, or it's just like there's so much out in the internet, and it's like, how do I even choose who to listen to? Like, Foundations Revealed could be the answer for you, because it cuts through all the noise, and the content that we have available it's not just this shirtwaist course that launches tomorrow. We've actually got a 16-year archive of articles, tutorials, and video workshops from medieval through to modern dress. We mostly focus on vintage and historical styles rather than modern things, but as with all sewing, like, you know, skills have developed over time. And, you know, they come, you know, what you learn can be applied to modern clothes too. Plus, we also have other courses that are currently included in the membership. So last year we did the walking skirt course, which I think from memory, correct me if I'm wrong, Brooklyn or Constance, I think it was 12 modules, but it was like it was just as in-depth as this shirtwaist course. But you'll have access to that as well. It's almost like you get 2 for 1. Plus, we've just released a fabric course where you can learn all about different fabrics, and it's not just, you know, cotton is this and silk is this. It's like all about like the fibers and the weaves, and there's so much detail. And if you are not yet someone who has a lot of sewing experience, we also have a beginner's sewing course to help you get up to speed quicker. And that's one that I was involved with when we created that course. So I'm one of the presenters on that course. And that's all just included in the umbrella of Foundations Revealed membership. Like, there's so much on there, and there's really something for everyone. Included as well in the membership, every month we have 4 what we call Get It Done sessions, which are available to all members, whether Essentials or Academy. And what they are kind of like community social events where we invite members to come together either on like in a video kind of style session, or with like an audio session if it's on Discord, and you can just kind of like sit and sew and talk with other like-minded people, and, you know, have a bit of community sewing time with the other members, which is really nice. And then we also do a monthly live workshop on where we deep dive into a particular topic. And that is live for Academy members. So if you're an Academy member, you get sent a link to be present in that call, and you can ask questions of us mentors as we're presenting, and we answer them. But then the recording will get uploaded to the website, and Essentials members can watch they'll still have access to that same information. They're just not there live. So that's like a little bit more about the difference between the 2 members. Sorry, 2 membership types. Brooklyn, you were a member before you started working at Foundations Revealed. Tell me what you like most about what we offer, because I'm trying to like condense everything that Foundations Revealed is into like a really brief kind of like little, this is what we do, and it's just so huge, and there's so much we offer. So what's your
I was an Academy member beforehand, and I highly recommend it. Not only is the website just got some of the best information out there, you will not find a better bra making article out there besides our like 8-part bra making article. But I also like the generosity of everyone, from mentors down to members. Within the Facebook group, everyone will be are so open and upfront with their knowledge, and they are so generous and sharing like industry secrets so openly. Yeah.
And Constance, what about you? You were a writer. One of the wonderful many writers that we have who write our tutorials and articles at Foundations Revealed. You were a writer before you became a mentor.
That's right.
Tell me about your experience of Foundations Revealed.
So Foundations Revealed, writing for Foundations Revealed really gave me an opportunity to explore the things that the really, really niche historical interests that I have. It won't surprise people that know me to know that my first articles were all about 16th century ruffs, which are one of my true loves. and I got to explore and make and explain why I love them, why they're important, and what they mean in history. But that's what the archive on Foundations Revealed is people who have something that they're passionate about, explaining it or teaching it or talking about it or just sharing their love for it and hoping that you want to too. So that's the beauty of using Foundations Revealed. If there's a new garment or a thing that you're curious about, you're like, oh, let's go and put that in the search on the website and see who this is their favorite topic and what they've had to say about it. And then from there, that might lead you on to somebody else's article or another article by the same person, or it might lead you to a live one of our recorded workshops that we've talked about where we've referenced things. So it really is just like a great big rabbit hole you can fall down, whether it's one particular thing you're interested in that you want to know more about, or whether you want to broaden everything and learn a little bit about everything.
Yeah, I was a member too before I became a mentor. And I was a member like years and years ago before we even had the different membership levels, before like the mentors were introduced as something that Foundations Revealed offered. But I remember because I'm self-taught with my corset making, and I just made a lot of trial and errors as I was learning my craft. But when I discovered Foundations Revealed and became like a paying member myself, I remember in like the first week or two of being a member, finding like the answers to all the questions that had been plaguing me for years of I just can't figure out how to make my corsets look like this and they keep doing this. And I became a member and like I just deep dived into all the tutorials and articles that I could find about corsets. And then suddenly I had the answers to all those questions that had been plaguing me. And I was like, this is amazing. I'm never leaving. And then things progressed for me and I ended up becoming a mentor, which was, like an unexpected, um, part of that journey. But it really helped me. And it really helped to transform the quality of my work. And that's partly why I'm so passionate about Foundations Revealed. Not even because I work there now. It's got nothing to do with that. It's just that it really did improve the quality of what I was able to make. Because I was a member for years before I became a member of staff. And I don't think my skills would have been high enough for me to become a member of staff if I hadn't first been a member, because I learned so much from it and it transformed my sewing so much. I know that there is so much free information out there on the internet. Sorry, there's a little bit of an echo at the moment. I'm not sure what's happening, but yeah. And something I've kind of mentioned before in previous workshops that we've done is that it can be so hard to work out who to listen to when there's just so much information. But also a lot of the free information, it doesn't necessarily deep dive in the same way, a paid author or expert or industry professional is going to write or record a presentation on how to do a particular thing, because it's a free YouTube clip, and there's only 20 minutes to share the thing, right? Whereas if you've got like Foundations Revealed pays everyone who writes for them or creates content for them. Like it's not just done, like they really believe in paying people for their work. And when you do that, people are more generous with the knowledge they share. So there isn't like this, oh, I'll just vaguely hint at how to do this and send you kind of in the right direction. Whereas that what we've got within the archive is like, here's how to do the thing and here's the research behind it. And like, there's no industry secrets here. It's like, we just give it all away to our members. But yeah, I want to make sure we leave time for Constance to share her exciting teaser of what's coming up in next week's member workshop. So I will leave that there. Thank you for listening to our little a little side rant about all the the wonders of being a Foundations Revealed member. And if it's right for you at this time and you would like to join us for the shirtwaist course that launches tomorrow, then I would like to invite you to visit foundationsrevealed.com/join and become a member. If you have any questions about membership, you can email Jenny at hello@foundationsrevealed.com. And there's also some frequently asked questions on that join page as well. So if you've got, most of the main kind of questions people usually have about membership can be found there as well. But okay, I always like to keep our promises with workshop content. So Constance, in our members in our members workshop next week, you're going to do like a big deep dive into a case study of an extant shirtwaist that you have. I think it was. Are you able to show us a little bit about what that might include? Like a real one, not just pictures.
Yes, of course. So part of researching this for me was that I want to look at real things. And then once you start looking at real garments and seeing how they're made, you just want to share them with everyone else. So that's what I'm going to do next week at the members call. But and these are two. Well, I've actually bought 3 original shirtwaists in the course of researching, working on this course. But I'm just going to show you a little teaser of one, a real handmade. It's nothing special in the terms of it's not from Worth, it's not from a great designer, but this is a real shirtwaist that somebody probably made for themselves. Sometime towards the end of the 1890s or early 1900s. And I'm just going to give you a little teaser of just how beautiful it is. It is sitting here with me, but I'm going to show you a film because you'll get to see a few more details, but you'll see lots more details next week in the members workshop. So hopefully you can see a black and white polka dot blouse on screen now. And so this is my shirtwaist. As I said, it's a very ordinary garment. It looks very like a shirt with a placket at the front. It's got a high collar. It's got pleats here. It's also got a hidden seam behind that pleat, so they had to join the fabric. And this is what we were talking about having a fitted lining layer. So once you open up these hooks and eyes at the front of the shirt, there you can see the hooks, there you can see the eyes. There's actually a fitted inside layer. So this is what fits snugly to the body and fastens with buttons and buttonholes. And then in here, you can see this is what sits over your corset and your corset cover or your body if you're wearing it, in a more modern style. And it's just such a fascinating construction. And I will go into full detail as to how it's made, both in the members workshop and in the shirtwaist course if you join and take part. But you can see here, there's just some gorgeous details. There's a little tiny gusset there just to make it big enough. There's, it's got a lovely sleeve. It's not quite a leg of mutton. It's not a bishop. It's just a nice puffed sleeve. And here you can see it, how it works on the stand. So you put the fitted lining, which is sewn into the blouse, the shirtwaist first, and you do up the buttons, and then you do up the hooks and eyes on top of that. And it's not a particularly fancy garment. It's just got some nice pleats and a little bit of fullness and some lace. But you can just see how then when you put it on with skirt, that it just makes it all look so neat and tidy, and then you can arrange those pleats. And yeah, I have so much I want to talk about. And I also have another shirtwaist to share with you that's made in a very different way, and yet the end result is quite different. The end result looks the same, but it's made in a completely different way, just to prove that there are so many ways you can make a shirtwaist. It really is individual and up to you. So yeah, that's my little teaser for what's to come.
Well, thank you so much, Constance. I can't wait to see like that in more detail. I love the double fastening. I just love how that does up. Like I guess that would do a lot to prevent, like those hook and eyes just like gaping or coming apart because it's already supported from those inner buttons, right? Like that means it would just sit just how you want it to sit rather than doing that thing where fastenings kind of gape at the fullest part of your bust and stuff like that. It would just, yeah.
And this is why looking at old original garments really inspires me, because you could read what that means to someone in a book, but then when you see it like that, you go, oh, that's where it's sewn, that's where it's not attached, that's where it sits free, that's where it's all joined together. But also, this is only one example made like that. This isn't the definitive way, but it's just so lovely to see how it was done.
Yeah. I like seeing all the hand finishing details on the inside as well, like how the inside of the seams were hand finished. I just thought that was really nice little detail. Thank you for sharing. So we have a couple of questions that have come through. Thank you very much to our concierges who have been looking after the chat over on YouTube. That's something else. We, as well as the mentors at Foundations Field, we also have a lovely team of concierges who are kind of in charge of like member experience, and they point our members in the right direction if they've like, oh, I'm looking for an article or a tutorial on how to do XYZ. And then the concierges will be like, have you found this one? And they'll send a link. Or if you've posted in the Academy Facebook group, and they will tag one of us mentors who is probably the best person to answer the question that's been asked. So we have like an actual team of people whose job it is to guide our members and help provide, like, help their member experience so they're getting the most out of their membership. And some of them have, Anna, Catherine, and Andy have been in the chat with you today, helping your experience of this free workshop. So thank you both very much for looking after everyone in the chat today. They have sent me through a couple of questions that have come up during the presentation. So I will read those out, and then Brooklyn and or Constance, I would love if you could answer them. Sarastra asked, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, how did they deal with the embroidery and lace on the corset covers showing underneath the shirtwaist? Whenever I layer decorated garments, thin fabrics, I get anxious because it looks messy to me.
I think one thing is that they would be very particular about which corset cover they wore under which shirtwaist. So if you've got a thicker shirting and whatnot, that embroidered corset cover is less likely to show. But if you're wearing one of those gauzy, lightweight ones, they would wear a plainer shirt. Well, they'd either do one of two things. They'd either wear a plainer shirtwaist, or they'd wear their fanciest shirtwaist because they know you're going to see it. I think they would fall in one of two camps, right? Like if it was like really lacy, that's when they're pulling out the one with all the teeny tiny twee embroidery because it almost adds to the design. I think it's really important to remember we live in a very minimalist society these days. We tend to like to be very minimalist with our clothing. Even when we're really going out there, it's still very minimalist comparatively. And there's actually been scientific studies about how our life is getting grayer. Like we're choosing less and less color in our lives. But that's a completely side tangent. So the thing about the Victorians, though, is that they loved more. Like they loved more. No, they loved even more. Like, like you put on one layer of trim, they're like, it needs about 15 more layers. And so in some ways, they would layer those. I suspect, like, obviously, didn't live there, can't go back and confirm, but I suspect they would actually look to layer those textures in a pleasing way, in a way that added to their entire thing. So instead of seeing it as a messy flaw, they would choose an embroidered corset cover where that embroidery adds to the shirtwaist if it's sheer, or if it's really lightweight, then they would probably and they didn't want it to show through. They didn't want the texture and whatnot. They would choose a much simpler corset cover. So they would have different options. And often with those really, like when we look at the pigeon breasted or full or kind of stomachy ones, they would have a specific corset cover that would start quite high and would just be solid ruffles all the way down to help support out and hold out that. So often, as this is one of the things where when we're doing costumes, because we are making and we don't wear them every day, we often only have that one corset cover because you don't want to have a variety. But just like you have different underwear for different experiences in your life, they would have different corset covers and different underwear for their experiences in life. So I think, yeah, you have to choose that, but also layering the textures and designs in a pleasing way is also a skill that they probably would have had as well.
And it's also so personal because it's like,
Yeah.
what looks nice to you or what looks messy to you may look just incredibly detailed to someone else. And there's no
Mm,
wrong way to do it because it's what you like the look of. So it could be that maybe you need to make yourself a really plain corset cover with no details on it so that it doesn't feel messy to you and it's a more kind of sleek and understated layering of garments because that sits more right with you and how you want to present yourself and what feels right for you stylistically because we all have our own tastes when it comes to what we think looks nice, and there's no wrong answers. There's no one right way to do it. It's do
mm.
what feels right for you. um so yeah, I loved hearing all your different about how the Victorians did it though, Brooklyn. I don't mean to jump in at the end. I just wanted to
I
remind
mean,
the question asker that, there's no wrong choices here and you can like what you like and dislike what you dislike. That's valid.
think that's kind of what I was trying to get at too, is that like, they'd have different styles and different tastes. And yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Next question is about how much yardage do we need for these shirtwaists? And that was asked by Nancy, who is one of our Stitchlings, which is the name. Stitchlings is the name of our members. And that was a name that the members themselves came up with, kind of inspired by is it the Inklings?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway,
Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, yeah.
yes.
Well, I mean, the simple answer is we are going to talk about the yardage required within the course because it isn't, as I said, a cookie cutter thing of making that you're all going to make the same style. You aren't all going to be the same size. So part of working through the course and making your mock-ups, well, first of all, making your block and making your mock-ups, we will take you through what's needed for each stage, and then you can
Mm.
apply that to the style of shirtwaist that you then make. But if you're thinking big sleeves, then lots of fabric is going to be
Yeah. I'd say like as a rough estimate, around 4 meters, unless you want leg of mutton sleeves, then you probably want to add 2 meters. Like the big late 1890s leg of mutton sleeve takes nearly a meter of fabric itself because it's it's long, but it's so wide that you have to open the fabric up. You can't cut two. And depending on your fabric, you might not be able to put so you almost want a meter per sleeve in that case. But it really depends on the time period because you like if you're also doing the later say teens, you could get away with maybe 3 meters. So how long is a
I
piece of
mean,
string?
and
yeah, and if
it's
you've got
also
like,
important.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut in.
Sorry,
You go. No, no,
I was
you
going to.
go.
We don't make you jump in with the big sleeve straight away. The whole point of making the mock-up stage is that you create a base garment that fits you, and that
Mm,
requires a lot less fabric than the big style. So you get to get the idea of where you're going and see where you're going and learn to start estimating what you need before you then apply that to the enormous sleeves.
Yeah, which is going to help you with your yardage calculations for pretty much any project going forward because you'll understand more about what these 3D shapes translate to in terms of fabric meterage or yardage, um, once it's laid out. Okay, and there is one last question, from Isabella Ferretti asked, the huge leg of mutton style was quite short-lived. Do you think it was because it was difficult to wear garments such as coats over the top of them? Um, and Isabella's also a stitchling. Thanks for joining us.
I would say it's probably actually more the yardage, the meterage. I think that you see this quite frequently within the Victorian period where something becomes a flight of fancy and everyone has to do it. And then they go, wait, this is using a lot of fabric. And then they pull it back. Often, remember, they also didn't wear clothes the same way they did. So often when you see them in a three-piece, in a suit with a jacket that's buttoned up and it has big sleeves, they might have a shirt waist that's sleeveless because they like today we take our jackets on and off as we get hot or cold or whatnot. But for them, once you put your suit on, you wore your jacket. And you even see this in men who are like out, like there'll be photos of them like out working, pitching in a hand, and they're in their full jackets and everything because it was just not respectable to take your jacket off. You put your so often and especially since when you see those big sleeves on those jackets, they often had their lining was fitted. Um, and so you definitely couldn't fit a sleeve into those jackets. So maybe a bit of column A, a bit of column B, but most likely I would say the meterage was probably it because it gets very expensive. Um, and their meterage was remember, we're also used to really wide fabrics now, but their fabrics were a lot less wide. So they definitely would have needed a full width of fabric and a full almost meter for a sleeve. And they they liked to try to be thrifty. And often again specifically with the shirtwaist, I think you'll see fashions going the opposite direction instead of going from the top down, aka rich to poor. I think that you start to see poor to rich in the kind of how they're influenced. So originally when the shirtwaist came out, they were like, oh yes, we should do these big sleeves because they're in style. And then, the poor women were like, I can't afford 2 extra meters just for sleeves. you know? And so as they start to tame down, that again would move up. Um, and so I think I mean, that's my guess. Obviously, we don't know because I didn't live there. When I get a time machine, I will get an absolute answer to this, but I'm working on it. Constance, do you have any
I
wisdom
don't
on
have
this?
anything. I don't have anything definite to contribute to that. But I think also there is also the practicality and impracticality of wearing those big sleeves. They don't always support themselves. You're then wearing a sleeve supporter, or or you're adding things that make it harder to launder. If you've got a lot of stiffening in your sleeve, you're not going to be washing that sort of shirt waist.
Mm,
So yeah, the practicality of the shirtwaist as a garment, like Brooklyn was saying, that the lower classes influence the upper classes is going to be a factor in there, like she says. And yeah, a big shirtwaist and a big sleeve is going to be much harder to look after.
mm.
Thank you both. That is all we have time for in terms of questions today. We're at the 90-minute mark, so we've got to kind of wrap up now. But if you are watching this video later, not in the live, or if you've just thought of a question that you want us to answer, leave a comment below the video. And we will do our best to kind of answer you there. Or if you decide that becoming a member is something that is the right fit for you at this time, you are very welcome to join us at Foundations Revealed, and you can ask your questions there. But kind of behind the membership stuff too. So just a couple of reminders before we say goodbye. Our shirtwaist course is launching tomorrow. So module 1 is going live tomorrow. And then the rest of the modules, there's 13 modules all up, they'll be released every 2 weeks. So you can kind of, there's enough time for you to do the work in between the release of each module, but it is intended to be self-paced. So if you cannot work that quickly, or you can't start tomorrow because you've got other things on, you can still join and then start joining in with the shirtwaist course kind of when it suits you. So our discounted membership offer is open for the next 4 days until Monday, the 1st of July, 8 p.m. British summertime or 12 p.m. Pacific time. And you can access our membership at foundationsrevealed.com/join. There's lots of links below this video, and there'll be links in the chat if you're watching this live. And yeah, if you are interested in not just accessing the extensive Foundations Revealed archive of information and other courses, but if you want to learn how to fit your torso and learn how to modify patterns to basically be your dream shirtwaist, or any other kind of real garment, really, if you want the skills to be able to make what takes your fancy, then do consider joining us for the Shirtwaist course. And you know, we would love to help you. Love to see what you create and love to help you conquer all of those fitting challenges that are so hard to figure out on your own. We'll be here for you to help. And if you've enjoyed this free workshop that we have run today, we are planning to run more free workshops in the future that will stream on the Foundations Revealed YouTube channel. So if you want to know when they are going to be, then make sure you join our mailing list. There is a link below this video as well, because we will send out an email to let you know when they're scheduled and what the topic's going to be, so you have an opportunity to watch them live and not just watch the recording. But yeah, thank you everyone who has joined us today and for giving us your time and for geeking out with us about beautiful shirtwaists and just like learning more about fashion history. It always is a joy to spend time with you and my fellow mentors. Thank you both for presenting. Is there anything you want to say before we all sign off?
Just thank you for listening to me nerd out about shirtwaists. I could go on
Yeah.
for hours and hours.
And
So
if,
yeah.
and if you want to hear more about them, you know to come and find us at the members workshop next week, where we will go on even more about them.
I
just
wait.
remember, I can't wait to see like that shirtwaist you shared with us, Constance, in more detail. I'm so looking forward to that. I just remember one last thing I wanted to say. Whilst the discounted membership joining offer, the nearly 50% offer, ends Monday, the 1st of July, 2024, membership is open all the time. It'll just, after that date, it will revert to our regular full pricing. So if you are watching this video later, membership, you can join at any time you want to become a Foundations Revealed member. It's just you might have missed out on that special offer if you've watched this after Monday. But you know, like I mentioned before about joining the mailing list, if you for any future free workshops, if you join the mailing list, you'll also get notified if there are any other special offers at a future date or anything like that. So yeah, we are very friendly and welcoming and would love to help you with your sewing whenever is the right time for you. But yeah, thank you all so much. We should sign off and let you all go down another rabbit hole of looking at pretty pictures of shirtwaists. And we hope to see some of you in the shirtwaist course over the coming weeks. So thank you all so much. Bye-bye. Bye.